Hello, everyone, and welcome to SoCast's first ever radio website, Smackdown. What we have today is a live event where we're going to have a panel of experts critique some real live radio station websites, and we're really excited for this and appreciate you all joining us. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, so let's get into it. Today, we want to discuss what makes a good radio station website great by looking at a sample of live radio websites. We're going to look at what they are doing well, identify some opportunities for them to improve, and we're going to give you all some insights that hopefully you can take back and implement with your own brands. Some of you may have been lucky enough to have your websites chosen for this webinar for the critique, and we appreciate you all submitting, anybody who did. Ultimately, our aim for you is to take back some actionable recommendations so you can really work to improve your own websites. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our all-star panel of experts. Our first person I'd like to introduce is Steve Jones. He is the VP of Programming at New Cap Radio. He is a renowned speaker and author of Brand Like a Rockstar, the book that explains the marketing and branding behind success of the world's greatest brands. Steve specializes in helping brands find their secret sauce and is excited to share some of the insights to help you find yours. So welcome, Steve. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Matt Kundle. Matt is the host of the amazing Sound Off podcast, a weekly show where he interviews leaders across the radio industry on the latest industry trends. Matt also does some excellent voiceover work and also consults with radio broadcasters to create engaging content and connect with their audience. Matt, awesome to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. And last but not least, we have our very own from SoCast, Tiffany Shum. Tiffany is a user experience designer here at SoCast. She is our internal expert and certified internal user experience designer. She'll be focusing on the design and flow of the websites today, and she'll share her insights on what makes a great radio station website great. It's great to have her, and not to make her blush, but she is also SoCast's most popular employee. So thank you, Tiff, for joining us today.
Thanks, Eric.
All right. So our goals today are really to answer the main question is we're looking to check off all the boxes in terms of what makes a great radio station website great. We're going to really look at 3 websites, and thanks to, again, to those who submitted, and we're going to focus on the strengths and opportunities for each of these websites. Our goal is to provide you with some ideas of what you can do to increase revenue and engagement and maximize the user experience with your site. And by doing so, we're going to really look at their home pages, their content and its quality, the placement of their calls to action, like their listen live, their level of social integration. We're really going to break down the criteria as such. We're going to look at their design, their branding, and how effective they are at conveying a strong brand presence to their audience, the quality of content and how engaging it is. Is the content really placed well, and is it going to really keep people coming back to your website? The social integration and how effectively they pull in their social and link to their social profiles. We're going to look at the navigation and the user experience, see if it makes sense, if it's intuitive, and discuss all of that. And finally, we'll touch on a little bit of revenue generation and see if the website is optimizing all of its digital revenue opportunities to monetize its digital assets. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's get ready for today's main event, the SoCast Radio website Smackdown.
That's Matt Kundle, I believe, jumping off the ring, isn't that?
I know. That was Matt. That is Matt.
Yeah, 20 pounds ago.
Matt, I should have had you do the introduction with some voiceover work. So next radio website Smackdown, we'll have you do that.
I'm sure I would have violated a number of copyright infringements by doing an intro.
I know. I really had to concentrate on not saying let's get ready to rumble. So the first site we're going to look at, guys, today is Payne Radio Group's KTFX Okie Country, based out of Muskogee, Oklahoma. And I'm going to toggle over there right now. And here is the first website. I'm going to pass it over to you, Steve, and want to get your input on what you think they're doing well in terms of branding. Are there any opportunities you see, and anything you think that they can be doing better?
Well, I think first of all, there's a lot of good intention here. There's a lot of content on this website, and I think that that's all good intentions are there. The big challenge I have with it is that there's just too much content. There's just, I don't know what the brand is from looking at this website. I'm not sure I fully get the radio station. It doesn't scream country. It actually has a lot of local news on it, which is great, but is that what the station's about? If I were working, to improve this website, my first goal would be to get rid of a lot of stuff. It's just got way too much coming at me to really make sense of it. And while that's great in terms of intent, it really does interfere with the user experience for me. As you can see, like all those news stories are great, but do they all need to be there? I also as you scroll down on the left-hand side, the social links. It's nice to have those incorporated, except that there have only been 2 posts this week. So if you're going to incorporate social, you better be using social. Otherwise, it highlights the fact that you're not where you should be.
Fair enough. That's great. Matt, from a content perspective, what do you think of this site?
I'm going to echo exactly what Steve said. There was a lot. By the way, the local news stuff is great. The print is incredibly small. And when you go to a site and you see incredibly small print, it immediately tells the user things are going to be hard to find. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to sift through all that stuff. And just as we're looking right here, I can see birthdays today. Well, someone's birthday is not why I came to this website. Again, there's too many things going on. Whether are you local news? If it's country first, where's the country? I mean, just putting the guitar off there on the left-hand side is, yes, it tells me it's a country station, but if I'm a country music fan, I may want more than just the video that's served up. There are some really unique opportunities here. This is an Oklahoma radio station. So the 2 things that I really want, up in the top there, it says sports. Well, we know sports is important, but if I'm going to click on it, am I going to get the same stuff that's on ESPN? As it turns out, when I clicked on it, no, you're not going to get the same stuff that's generic. There are some local opportunities. High school football is incredibly popular. So maybe we retitle that and don't call it sports, we call it high school football. The other component, and maybe this is a separate one as well, is the Oklahoma Sooners. This is located very near, this is Sooners country. So why don't we have a part of the website that's dedicated to Sooners basketball and Sooners football? That immediately localizes it. And, instead of saying just sports, we go right in on what people are really coming for. And that's the Sooners. The other thing that I think is a really unique opportunity for this station is the weather. And we see the weather and the temperature. Yes, we can have that there. When I click through it, I wound up going to Tulsa, Oklahoma for, the big weather map that they would have in Tulsa. Well, what plows through Oklahoma in a time of emergency? There's tornado season. Well, what can this website do in tornado season to let me know? Is there a warning? Because this should be the first place I go if there's going to be a tornado in my part of the world. So I see little opportunities like that, but if you want to cash in on them, you want to bring them down and make it a little bit local. So not just sports, Sooners, not just weather, tornado.
Excellent feedback. Tiff, looking at this from a user experience standpoint and being a user experience expert, but what do you think of, I'll go back to the homepage here and let you get started there, but what do you think of this site and, what are they doing well and what opportunities do they have?
Well, expanding on what Steve and Matt has both addressed, the first impressions on the page is that it's very overwhelming due to the amount of content present on the page. Something that could definitely help users understand what the site is offering, like how to navigate the page and the site, is they can create much clearer sections to organize the content, and also allow for more space to create that visual separation, so it's easier for users to understand what section is devoted to what, and create a clearer path to be able to navigate and access that content. One of the other things that I first noticed is that the site header on top of the navigation is heavily underutilized from a design point of view. So one of the things they can either do is use that space to integrate more branding elements, or they can shrink the logo down to incorporate it into the navigation in order to free up all of that space so that users can access the content more quickly. One of the other things that I also noticed is that for a radio station site, their Listen Live button is actually somewhat hidden right now. Where it currently sits on the page, next to the feature rotator, I actually thought that was an ad at first. It took me a while to figure that was even a button. And Eric, if you try to click on it, currently the whole, you would expect that the whole image would be clickable, but only certain parts of the image is. So that's also a usability issue.
Yeah, I'm clicking on the on air now, and it's actually not to actually access the Listen Live. I have to click on the Fun Morning Show with Cliff and Katie.
Exactly, and it's not clear that clicking on that will take you to the player either. So there's definitely some room for improvement there. But like some of the good things that like are on the page is that the feature rotator does serve as a good starting point for the user, and it's a good place for them to promote their offerings. So continuing on that, like their content, like the content calendar and the news. It's great that they have them there, but there's definitely ways to make that type of content more engaging and more usable. So for example, SoCast has a lot of widgets that offer different displays to with the intention to drive engagement. So for our blog news layouts, like we have different like thumbnail options. So you can configure like custom like blog grids, for example. Images like play like a large part into helping users decide whether they want to click on links. And in terms of the content calendar, like right now, it's not even clear that it's for events until you start clicking on like the highlighted dates. So like a listing of calendar events would actually be more useful in this case.
Very good. I think so. One of the things you pointed out also is just some images would really help drive some conversion. I think Matt pointed that out, that it's very text heavy, and Steve pointed out that it's very small text. And I think you know, some nice bolder images to highlight what you know, some of the content in the local news and you know, national news would be really helpful as well.
Yeah, and just may offer a real positive is I see a lot of websites where people don't care, and I don't know anything about this radio station or who owns it or who works there, but it's clear to me that they care. There's a lot of content on here. They're doing, like I said at the very start, the intent is there and it's really good. I think that's a lot to build on.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that and say, by the way, the stream was really, really clean. It was a good listen for the time that I did listen to the radio station. Had no problem with that. Those good intentions, we want to link stuff all the time and get people to where they need to go. Many times that involved leaving the radio station website, which was kind of too bad because we want to keep people on the site as long as possible.
Agreed. One of the things I noticed was, you know, when you click on their contests and things like that, you also, not all of these are actually contests. And not all of them are clickable as well. So I think they all have to have a little bit more life in a destination and actually be contests. One of the things I do think that they do a great job, and all three of you have sort of referenced it, is bringing together that really strong local, you know, really taking advantage of the local side of things. Shop local, the intent is there for community events and things, but I love the concept of highlighting a lot of their advertisers and ad partners within the area. Doing a shop local thing, especially in a, you know, small and mid-sized market, is a great way to get engagement. I think they could be doing a little bit more with this page in terms of featuring some of their ad partners, but overall the intent is there, and the shop local concept is great. I also noticed that when you do click on this, there is a Listen Live now, and well, it did work before, but before, when I was sort of just doing a little bit of prep work, I noticed it didn't actually click through. It went to a blank 404 page, so that obviously didn't work, but I really love the concept of shop local. In terms of social integration here, Steve, you referenced that, and we at SoCast, really, from our point of view, social is an incredible driver of traffic. Does anybody have any comments as to how they would better integrate social into this website?
I would use it. I would definitely have it more prominent. I think it's buried where it is. And because there's so much on the page to bombard the listener with, I think that the presence of too many choices leads to no action. If you give this more prominence, you're more likely to get engagement from it. So I would, you know, addition by subtraction on that front, and then be more active on the social side. That, like, you know, you see the one post from this morning, and then if you scroll down a bit, the previous post was Monday. And that's if you're either, you know, if you're not going to do it, don't have it there. If you're going to have it there, dive in and use it properly.
The one thing I would say is that when I went to access the morning show, it took me straight to the Facebook page, which is okay because it gets me interactive with them right now. But I want to know a little bit more about the personalities. And one of the things I look for when I go to a station website is how quickly can I be connected to their social media accounts and work with them. If you can connect to the personalities' social media accounts, I mean that's most of the connection right there, because you'll connect with the radio station one, but you also need to connect with your favorite personalities as well and make it easy.
Great.
I totally agree with that. And also, like, if they are going to be promoting their social media, then they should definitely provide a much more prominent space for it, so that users can actually interact with their Facebook posts. Right now, as it is, like the widget is hard to see the content or interact with it. So something that we have at SoCast is called an activity stream, which we're actually able to integrate your Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Instagram posts and such. And it's given a proper amount of space. You can like it, you can share the post, and it's very easy to see what the station has up to on social media.
Excellent. There were two more things that I noticed with this site just before, and then we'll move on to the next site because we got, we're obviously getting a lot of great conversation. I noticed that this website is, not mobile responsive as well. And that in today's day and age is obviously critical. So, that's certainly one opportunity for them to take away. On a positive note, I mean, obviously it's up to each individual station how much advertising they want to put on there, but they do a great job. The ads are nice and bold, colorful. They're well scaled to the site here. They're aligned, so it's a constant flow of it. Each individual radio operator is going to put as much or as little advertising as they want on it, but at least in this case, they're doing a great job with the quality of their ad units, in my opinion. All right, next I want to move over to Auburn Radio Network's News Talk, WANI, out of Auburn, Alabama. And, we'll go right back to Steve Jones here. And Steve, why don't you give us your first thoughts on this station?
All right. Well, what I like immediately about it is that it's clean. It's white and clean, and I like that. I'm a fan of websites. I take my cues from a little company called Google, who's done pretty well with clean white websites. Unfortunately, what I feel is my first impression here is that this is a news talk radio station, and under national headlines, the most pressing story, which appears to be from tomorrow, which is amazing that they can do that, is the 6 worst Jeopardy players ever. And we are 4 days removed from the worst mass shooting in American history. And the lead story nationally on a news talk radio station is the 6 worst Jeopardy players ever. That's just, I think, a knife in the heart of your brand. It shakes people's confidence in what you're about and is a major problem. So that's my biggest immediate complaint, is that that's also a syndicated feed there that the local station has no control over, I suspect, and it's making them look bad. In addition to that, that middle bar, unless I expand the window completely on my MacBook, as I diminish the window, it gets very awkward and things start to overlap. I'm not sure if that'll happen on yours as you resize it, but it did on mine. So that was a problem too. But the biggest one is that the content, while there's lots of it, is misguided.
The date in particular, and potentially some of the topics there being really.
Yeah, the date's just kind of funny. The rest of it is really concerning because this is a news talk station, and what's not on the front page is what everybody is talking about.
Right. Matt, over to you.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what Steve said about the white. It was the first thing that caught my eye, and it's really nice and clean in that respect. I also did flag the that widget in the middle. That widget needs to go down into a bottom corner of some sort. I maybe you have to carry it. They carry a lot of Fox News, so top of the hour, it's a Fox News update. when I listened to it, and the stream was really, really nice as well and worked well. That widget should probably be down in the lower corner. And what are we going to fill that with? Well, I think you should probably fill it with the stars of the radio station. And the stars of the radio station are Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity. And that's why people listen to the station, and that's why people probably come to the radio station. You know, those shows, what's coming up on those shows today? What is Rush talking about? What's Sean Hannity going to be talking about today? And can we get feeds and find out what's going to be airing on the show? Right now, Rush Limbaugh is airing. And, you know, it'd be nice to have him front and center. These are people, we know them because they're on TV in one capacity or another. So let's put them on the webpage. Let's see what they have to say. I also found the print on this. Here's a news talk station to be also again a little bit small. Can we click on this, and can it take me to the story that it needs to take me to?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, you know, there's some opportunity for some more bolder images here. Tiff, what about you from how would you improve the user experience and the flow of the website?
Well, the one thing I did like about the site is that the content is organized in a way that's easy to understand. But they could definitely utilize some type of stronger call to action or promotion of some sort, or utilize like the site header area below the navigation a little bit more. So they could potentially showcase their their morning show, like with like images of the personalities, for example, or special guests or things like that. So like a dedicated like hero area or like a feature rotator, for example, like would definitely help in that regard.
I like that they're posting some of their audio content here for a little bit of an on-demand section. You know, it could probably they could probably add a little bit of context to it. But I think, again, going back to what we talked about on the previous website, the intent is there. Anybody have any feedback on how to best use or how you know, maybe Steve at NewCap are utilizing, you know, previously played content for an on-demand section?
Yeah, we run most of that through our aggregate partnership with Radio Player. So we, you know, to be honest, don't do a great job of that yet. And I don't think that, I haven't seen a lot of radio companies that have that completely figured out, how to create on-demand content that's worth coming back to and that brings listeners back to the radio station. I think we either have content up there that's sort of recycled stuff from the morning show that maybe is, you know, just is a little less compelling than we'd like. And I'm not saying this is the case at this radio station, just in general, I'm finding that. Or else we're creating unique content that doesn't bring radio station listeners back to the station. It brings them somewhere else. So I know I haven't cracked that yet, and I'm not sure I know who has.
Okay.
I'll echo that. This radio station does a really, really good job at audio. It's posted. It just can be a little bit hard to find because it's mislabeled, or I'm not going to be able to find it right away. So I know they talk about, you know, under this morning or this week. Sometimes in there I can find the audio. So maybe something that says audio to get me there, because if I want to go to this website and find the audio, I want to be able to get it to it in one click. The second thing after I find the audio is I want to be able to share it right away, and I either could not find out how to share, I could not share it, or didn't know how to be able to reference this. So I could send it to a friend and say, hey, by the way, did you hear Gary's interview on the radio station? That is really, Steve, I think that's really, Steve, the best way to get people to go and to get them back to the radio station is that when we have the piece of audio, can we match it up so people can share it and then drive them back to the website? Because maybe they missed the interview and we don't have to do the work ourselves. Sometimes it's the guest who can go and you know, funnel people back to the website. So interview people with lots of Twitter followers and Instagram followers.
Excellent. I noticed here when I clicked on this morning page, they are using Google AdSense over here on the left. And, you know, prior to me navigating away, there was, you know, an ad for a Russian matchup. And I think it's really important that you're well versed in utilizing Google AdSense to make sure that the advertisements you have displayed through a programmatic network like that, you know, are somewhat filtered. This being a conservative radio station, I'm not entirely sure that a Russian matchup would be entirely appropriate. Sean Hannity probably would object to that, but you know, I think it's important, all joking aside, to really have that included. I also think there's an opportunity for social to be a little bit more prominent on this website. I think just that there's with news and talk, it generally generates a lot of conversation. Tiff, do you have any insights into some experience and on building websites, news and talk websites specifically that will help with that better integrate social?
Yes, for sure. Like a much more prominent social area would be helpful. Like we've found for clients that for news sites in particular, like even a Twitter feed devoted to traffic updates actually is used a lot by their users. So right now, like the Twitter widget is like buried in the footer, which is also like a strange place for it to be in the first place, because the footer should be for secondary content. So it's sort of like an in between. Like it's there, but they don't seem to really want to promote it. In which case, they probably shouldn't be doing it at all. But like otherwise, like one of like the issues of using those like the embedded widgets is that they don't work well on mobile, which I can't stress enough is something that like everyone really needs to be focused on at the top of their minds nowadays. Like we found that like with our radio clients, about like more than 70% of their traffic comes from mobile devices. So like the sites really need to be fully responsive.
Yeah, and optimized most definitely. We'll move on to the last site. Anybody want to throw in any parting words before we move on from WANI?
A really small point on the branding front, but as you scroll down that site to the section about Next Radio, it's inviting you to listen to ESPN on Next Radio right there. I think that should be WANI on Next Radio, but perhaps they're promoting only their sister station there. It looks like a mistake, but small thing, but I would fix that.
But I think all of these small things add up, to really, to really make a strong brand and to have people loyal to it. I think that that's really an important thing.
The WANI club, which I registered for, is going to give me a lot of deals and a lot of information about things that weren't necessarily going to pertain to news. I would probably move that towards like breaking news. If you're going to send email to people, make it breaking news and have some value in there.
Right. Excellent. Well, all great feedback, guys, and I hope our audience is getting a lot out of this. I'm going to move over to our third website, and we'd like to thank Maritime Broadcasting Q93 out of Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, Canada, a beautiful place, and Q93. I'll pass it again, and we'll start with Mr. Steve Jones and get his initial feedback on the site.
Well, I think this is a pretty interesting website. It's on brand as far as the look and feel of it. In fact, maybe I would say possibly a little too much on brand. It feels really rock, and sometimes on the rock format, you don't have to be quite as dark as some stations are. I like that this site is compartmentalized. As a user, I see where I'm going. I know what I'm doing. I find that the contrast in the third-party stuff, the widget first, social, the weather widget, those take me off brand and those look awkward there. And I also find the content down the middle to be a little hit and miss in terms of being on brand. I'm not sure that a jazz tribute to the Bare Naked Ladies is where the rock station wants to go. Upside, listen live, nice and prominent, and easy to use, and it appears to be mobile responsive as I resize my screen. So I like those things about it.
Excellent. Matt, what are your thoughts?
I know it's a rock station the minute that I get onto the site, which is a good thing. But Steve mentioned that one of the trappings of being a rock station is you can be too rock and throw up potential listeners who would want to come on board. As I clicked through the site, everything just sort of had one thing on it. So, if you're to scroll down just a little bit, about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominations, well, I clicked on it. It had like 3 sentences. So, is that a blog? If it's 3 sentences, I don't know. If you're going to blog, you should be blogging on a local level about that. Maybe the author should be giving his take, his input about who he really thinks should maybe get in. We'd like to sort of know that stuff. And one of the here's one of the trappings that I find is that it's called the Islands Rock, but it doesn't say what island it is. In fact, the only place that it's Charlottetown is through the weather widget. it doesn't actually say which island it is. It doesn't say Prince Edward Island. So we want to get a little bit of that local feel on there. And here's one that it's really a lot of radio stations do. They don't tell you where the frequency is on the radio station. It says Q93. Well, where? 93.1, 93.3, 93.5. You know, give the frequency. I know something went viral last week about trying to get millennials to tune into the radio, but honestly, put that up there at some point on where to find it on the radio when you get into the car. Would be nice. Weather, I mean, listen, every radio station, and we can talk about this, every radio station feels the need to include some form of weather, but are people really getting it from your station website? You know, I know you should put it up. Well, Steve is saying no, and you know, that you ask Siri, or you go to the Weather Network, or you go to your own personal default, or you just ask Siri, it'll pop up right away. So I have to ask if we really even need weather. It says, I mean, this part of the website has cancellations, and you know, on a nice day, that's just not even going to be used. And there's a number of things up there that just are empty. All three radio stations we've talked about today had community calendars that were empty. So why bother with the calendars? I mean, it's when we start to build a website, we say, let's get a calendar. Well, then you got to find somebody to populate it with actual things that are going to take place. And all three radio stations today had empty calendars. So I think we should revisit whether or not we need those.
Great feedback.
Yep.
Tip, from a user experience and a navigation, anything else to add there?
Well, from a design perspective, they have some great elements going on for them. One of the things I like the most about the site was the navigation. The menu items are very clear. It's easy to understand where you are on the site. Like the page that you're currently on is highlighted, so you can always navigate the site and like get back to like where you need to go. But one of the things that could significantly improve the experience is if the navigation was sticky, like if it was fixed at the top of the screen. And that definitely helps a lot on mobiles, like especially because like the page content scrolls far longer than it does like on desktop. So something like that would definitely help. Otherwise, the layout is fairly good. One of the things I would do is make better use of the space below the feature rotator. Right now, there's the keeping it local image or ad that's just taking up all of like that column. It could be better devoted to like the blog news, which the layout could also like afford to better utilize the space.
Agreed. I think, you know, there's so many nice things about this site. You know that it's a rock site. You know, they're doing a strong job at really Qblog, Qmunity. I think that the site has a big, I think that there's an opportunity to really populate the content on these things to really make it meaningful, because they are doing a great job. Again, all going back to intent. You know, but, you know, as you just saw, I clicked on keeping it local only on Q, and it went to, you know, a page not found. And those type of things are easy to manage, you know, in making sure that those don't appear. You're probably better off not having anything there than having that sort of experience. You know, I think some of the color schemes and everything, I like what Steve said, just about it being a little bit dark. You know, the Q blog here sort of gets washed out a little bit with the dark gray on lighter gray. I love that they're doing, you know, they have some images, and I love the way they're, you know, really highlighting the headlines here, and that they're giving, you know, the text is nice. It's not like a few of the other sites we looked at where we found the text really small. You know, I agree with Matt for the most part on the volume of content. I feel, but, you know, to highlight something really positive, you know, again, they're using nice bold imagery there to, you know, to give it a nice feel. Again, the color scheme here, a little bit of gray on gray is not optimal. But overall, a really nice site. And as you know, as Steve pointed out, really well branded. Matt pointed out, you know, it's it's a rock site right when you come on. I think, you know, the last question here is, you know, again, how can they more effectively use social? We've talked a lot about the widget, but is there anything else you guys have recognized just looking at the site on a social level? I'll point out. I'll go to Tiff on that.
Like my issue with it is basically the same as the other two sites, is that it's not prominently displayed, it's not easy to interact with, it's not fully like mobile optimized. So it's like, so it would be like the same line of advice. Like if they're going to go the social route, then they should be doing more to promote it and emphasize it. And otherwise, if they're not, then they should like it shouldn't be there.
It appears the widget only includes Facebook as well and no other social interactions. A Twitter feed there that I could find. I would try to have all my social in that one spot.
And make it more of a, yeah, more of an all-encompassing social feed.
Yeah, and connect me to the personalities Twitter feed. I mean, Joey Adams is up on the front there as the morning host. I mean, he's front and prominent. How can I connect to his right away? And is there a page for his show? You know, because it looks like a pretty important morning show. And if we're going to put our personality front and center, we also need to be able to connect to the personalities accounts as well.
I like what they've done here in terms of, you know, giving them a bio and everything like that. But I think that that's a great opportunity you point out, Matt.
Yeah, you'd almost think that by clicking on one of those share buttons, I'd be able to access that his account, but it's just a share button. And you know, I mean, I'll let Tiffany talk to the value of those share buttons, but the share buttons seem to be on every page on this website.
I would wonder if anyone has ever in the history of the digital age shared Joey's bio on Pinterest. Like, why is that there if it's not going to get used, right? And that's not a criticism of Joey. It's just a fact of how people use digital.
Like it's better utilized on the like the blog templates, for example, because those would typically be the type of content that people would share, as opposed to static pages like the personality profiles.
Honestly, a lot of our stations, I've tried to discourage personality bios. You know, I've looked at the stats, and anything that gets less than 3% of my overall traffic probably shouldn't be prominent at all or even on the site, and most of the jock bios fall into that category.
Yeah, even better is rather than do the bios, just people are just going to go to the social stream, check out the social stream, and everything you need to know about that person is generally within the social stream.
If I could offer one more thought on, if you could click on playlist for me, and this is just me being annoying.
There we go, Steve. Sorry about that.
Sorry. This is just my annoying OCD side, but
I know what you're going to say too.
Yeah, this looks like it's taken off of the RDS feed or the metadata, and you've got some capitalized, some lowercase, and you've also got on here some instructions like Wanted Dead or Alive Bon Jovi album version. Fantastic, but does the listener need to know that? And then in cases where there's spelling mistakes, like Everlast What It's Like, which played at 11:32, has a capital S, and it's a small thing, but it adds up. And as you scroll down again, there's one early on, where Don't Do Me Like That by Tom Petty, instead of an apostrophe as a question mark in Don't. And it's stuff like that shows up, or the Killers show up as Killers, parentheses, the. That kind of stuff is just sloppy and should be fixed. Not that you couldn't go to some of my websites and probably find equal sloppiness, and just drives me all crazy.
Yeah, I'll just
recommend to do what you can to mitigate that and make it as pro as possible.
Yeah, I had this written down as well. And as we move forward, and I do some podcasting, and with Apple, the way they've started to integrate things, metadata is something that we really need to pay attention to in just about everything that we do. So whether it's your website or your song playlists, and especially as radio stations move forward into voice-activated parts, we're going to need to make sure that all of our metadata is in order. And a problem like this can be cleaned up in probably a day or two.
Mm-hmm. And then to add to that, the album artwork, it drives me crazy, and I see it all the time where it's not on this site, but you'll see him now playing with the album artwork, and it'll be Beat It by Michael Jackson, and it'll show the Michael Jackson's 25 greatest hits album, and it's from Thriller, and it needs to be shown that way. And it's just a small point, but it takes radio stations off brand when it looks like they're out of touch. Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer is from Slippery When Wet, not Bon Jovi's greatest hits.
That is
just
all.
quickly about the sorry,
No,
Just
go
to
ahead.
speak quickly about the presentation of the playlist is that if you're a music radio station, you should be promoting the music a lot more. So just looking at the list, like it's more difficult to consume and not it's not easy to engage users just because it's just like a straight text list. Like they could at least add like the thumbnail artwork, for example, to make the list like easier to process.
That is also great feedback. Guys, listen, I really appreciate all of this. I mean, I think we could go on for a long time and point out a lot of amazing things about all three of these websites. And I think we can point out some opportunities. I want to thank, first of all, everybody who did submit a website for critique. This will not be the last website throwdown that we do. We do plan to do this somewhat more frequently, and we'll be inviting all of three of our guests back today, as well as some other amazing experts. So if we didn't get to you this time, please don't hesitate to email us to ask us for a free consultation. We'll be happy internally to have Tiff, myself. We'll even send it over to Steve and Matt for some other feedback and send that back to you. Before we go, again, I want to thank all of our three panelists. You guys are outstanding, and we really appreciate your feedback there. Before we go, let's just go over some low-hanging fruit to go over. This is sort of a high-level overview, but you want to ensure that your websites have a bright theme and intuitive navigation. I would say that extends to both mobile and web, making sure you have mobile optimized websites, making it clear and easy for people to navigate with nice bold images, large enough text, and making sure that it's not overwhelming is a lot of the feedback we got, on a couple of the sites, just that you pare down the volume. Probably less is a little bit more, and then you can have some website pages that can lead to more an expansion of the content you have. Make sure your content is compelling, that the that the timestamps are accurate, that it's timely in what content you're pushing out. Obviously, in this week, we have some tragic but very important news that people are looking to keep up to date on. So important that is there to drive audience engagement, and also that it's aligned with the brand. Make sure social media feeds are integrated on your website. The tickers are better than nothing, but make sure the placement is there. I think that's a very important point to take away from a lot of the comments our panelists made. Make sure that the tickers are mobile optimized, and look for other opportunities to get your audience engaged in social, because there is a great opportunity for you to drive traffic from social to your websites leveraging social media. Lastly, make sure that you have a good volume of digital inventory on your site. Make sure that it is appropriate for the branding of your site, as we saw on a couple of websites, and make sure that it's not overwhelming, because people don't really want to come to an ad, just a bunch of ads. Make sure that it's consistent with what you're trying to achieve with your own brand strategy. Again, SoCast, just as a recap for you, we really aspire to make digital growth easy. We have a website content management system, a mobile app development tool, as well as a social media management tool that makes it easy, all on one dashboard. So you don't have to have multiple suppliers. You don't have to have multiple logins to the back end to operate all of these. We'd be happy, as I mentioned earlier, to do an assessment on anybody's website and to discuss digital strategy further. You can always ask to talk to a specialist at socastdigital.com/talk to a specialist, or you're welcome to contact me, your host, Eric, at socastdigital.com. For everybody who attended our webinar, we want to say thank you very much. Please stay tuned for future website throwdowns and other webinars. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll look forward to speaking to you all again. Take care.